Welcome. Today we are going to create a burn. You're going to use a tissue and separate it into one ply and then tear it into strips. Then you're going to take a cotton swab and your latex and your tissue and begin the process. You'll lay a tissue on your arm, grab a cotton swab, and start to massage the latex onto your arm. You will then start to gather that tissue, creating a texture with that latex. Make sure that you are being very gentle because it is a tedious process. When you are forming the burn, you want to make sure you leave some holes or gaps to give that illusion of busted blisters, which is very gross but very accurate description. For the next piece of tissue, you're going to massage some latex into your arm, making a good landing spot for that next piece of tissue for accuracy. Continue the steps as before, leaving holes and gaps and raised ridges. Then you will continue the process until your burn is the correct size that you are looking for. This could take a little while, so I'm just going to speed up the video a little here. All right, now that I've got a good size, I'm going to start blending some liquid latex out from the outer rim of the burn area. That is going to give me a flawless seam between your skin and your appliance that you've just created. Make sure that you're doing small dabbing and little drags, not large drags. Feather it out on all sides. Your next step is to add latex over the top of the entire burn that you have created. You're going very gently over the tissue and getting into those holes to give you a solid piece. Once you're done, you want to let this dry completely. My latex dries clear, so it just looks like tissue on my skin. Grab your red paint and an applicator sponge, and you are going to dab all over your burn area, making sure that you cover as much as you possibly can. It does take a while, so I have sped up the video. All right, we've got an excellent coverage with that sponge. So the next step is to grab a flat brush. You're going to dip it into the red and get into the creases. So that's going to, one, add more detail, and two, the red will be darker when you're using the brush versus when you were using that sponge. So it's going to add some depth and shadow work. Get in all the areas going around. Again, this does take a while, so I have sped up the video for you. All right, so now you're going to wipe off the excess off your flat brush. That way you'll have a nice clean brush for the next color. You're dipping into indigo. The next technique is to go right into the bottom of the creases and gently pull that out into the holes. That is going to really make that third dimensional pop happen for you and give the depth that we're looking for. Now that you see how we're doing it, I'm speeding up the video. Feel free to pause to catch up at any time. All right, so now I'm going to go in a little bit harder with that blue, add a little bit more detail and darken up specific areas. Makes it look very realistic. Our next step is coming right up. We're going to use black to add the crispiness of the actual burn. You're just going to lightly dab and brush that onto the topmost part of your tissue wrinkles, and that is really going to make this burn come to life. Now this could be done in a random pattern, or you can actually build your burn so it looks like you touched a grill or many other things that could burn you. You could make patterns out of it. But for me, I'm just adding in here and there just to give it a little extra. All right, so now we've got our crispies all done. We're gonna go in with that maroon brown shade and gently highlight and darken different areas to add some depth in there. You really need to play around with it and see which areas work best. I like to not have a lot on my paintbrush, so I always make a little puddle on my arm for myself. That way I could dip back into it as needed. Remember, we're not painting actual big parts, we're just adding a little bit of depth here, so you don't need a lot on your paintbrush. Well, you'll continue to go back to that maroon that you have up there because you don't need a lot there. All right, we've done enough with the paintbrush, so we're going to grab a stipple sponge. I really like to cut mine into 3 separate pieces. That way I have ultimate control over what I'm stippling. You don't have to, but it definitely helps. You're going to use one of the small edges and dig into that maroon/brown and stipple around the outer edge of your burn, going all the way around the outer edge to add texture. Next, you're going to rotate to a clean edge of your stipple sponge and get into that indigo, and you're going to go around that edge one more time. Remember, you're just stippling, you're not adding solid color, you're only adding the texture with the stipple sponge. All right, so that looks really good. We're going to grab the red sponge from earlier and we're going to dab to blend around the edge, moving the paint onto your regular arm. It's looking really good. Now for some extra credit, my friends. Using your ring finger or your middle finger, just gently dab a little bit of petroleum jelly all over that burn. It's going to make it look like it just happened. Don't rub, but dab. If you rub, you're going to mess up the paint that you just had on there, okay? Be very patient with it. It does take a while, and you don't need a whole lot to go a long way. A little bit goes a very long way. Now that looks pretty realistic to me. I'm sure yours looks just as good. All right, so let's do removal. You're going to pull up an edge of your burn, and then using a cotton swab, you are going to gently massage either the alcohol or a spirit gum remover underneath your appliance. If you just rip it directly off, one, you're going to pull off any baby hairs that you have on your arm, and two, it will damage the prosthetic that you just made. If you do this gently enough, you'll be able to reuse this piece multiple times, which I think is absolutely great because you never know when you're going to need a really cool burn. All right, so once we've got that pretty much removed, you'll be able to see the final piece here. I just like to let it dry and then put it in a baggie, put it in my kit, and keep it for another time. You'll gently massage either a baby wipe or a makeup remover wipe on the remaining latex and paint, and be sure not to put those latex pieces down the drain. That will clog up your sink. You want to make sure you get that directly into the garbage can.